Ladies and gentlemen, the following is scheduled for one fall. It is time for That Way Cool Wrestling Show! Hey everybody, Danny J here along with Charles Gemini Gregory and the Grand Onslaught Jackson. It's yet another edition of That Way Cool Wrestling Show. Remember, you can join us on YouTube at DJB Productions. Just go in and hit the subscribe button, and you'll be able to jump on there now, share. We have a bunch of other shows in there as well. Also, go to thatwaycoolwrestlingshow.com, djbproductions.com, and remember, we're on Facebook at That Way Cool Wrestling Show. Great thing tonight. You can see right behind LeGrand here, that beautiful mug right there. That is Blake Chadwick, on-air commentator for Ring Warriors. He's on the phone today. He's coming to us out of Florida. So by all means, how are you doing, Blake? Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Danny, guys. Very happy to be here on this beautiful Saturday morning. I know it's a bit chilly in most parts of the country, but it's starting to warm up here down in South Florida.
What is the temperature there?
Right now, I think it's a brisk 73.
Son of a bitch.
Hey, Blake, I'm going to be honest with you right now. I don't like you right now.
it is a brisk.
I felt comfortable saying it through the phone since we weren't in person.
It's a nice brisk 13 degrees.
13 degrees up here. Yeah, so
my bones are chilling.
We're all like trying to get the heater on in the studio. So.
If you're looking at the video right now, we're all huddled up like Eskimos together in the studio.
We're doing body heat right now.
Oh yeah, when I saw you guys when we were going over stuff in the pre-production, it looked like you were huddled around a fire or something.
Pretty much, yeah. That's what we're trying to get at. That's what we're trying to do. It gets us closer together.
Little Billy Vera in this moment playing in the background.
It's very romantic in the studio. No, but Blake, for those who don't know who Blake is, if you go on WGN, on Saturday mornings, which is so cool because it's a Saturday, it's the start of Saturday morning wrestling again.
Love it.
It's Ring Warriors, and he is our on-air talent. He's the lead commentator for Ring Warriors, and he has a lot of other gigs too, and we'll get into that. But something about Ring Warriors I wanted to say up front, it really harkens back to what we had in the 80s. When you watch this, and they have Ken Resnick, by the way,
yes,
who's an old AWA and WWF legend. When they do it, remember in old school when Gene would be doing interviews and on his left side somebody would come in, he would do an interview, that guy would leave, and on the right side somebody else would come in.
Yeah.
This is what they do in Ring Warriors. It's very, very old school, and they have a lot of great talent, and a lot of the talent, because it's based out of like Vegas, is a lot of West Coast talent, which on the East Coast we really don't get to see as often. Right. Because a lot of them stay local. They're not on a national level because, remember, territories kind of came back, but they're not back 100% because of, obviously, production and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Blake, I started watching the show, and Blake, I'll tell you right up front, I am someone that's been this is my 29th year in broadcasting. And
oh, wow.
Yeah. I've been doing it a long time, and long time. Yeah, and I look young, but I'm not that young. but the thing is, when I watch wrestling, especially if I watch indie wrestling, I do tend to listen to the commentator to see how they come across. Some of them come off with a fake voice. Some of them come off with a too much oomph behind it. And
this is Bill Wilson.
You know what I mean? And it's distracting when I'm watching the talent wrestle, because obviously we've said it on this show many times that the on-air commentator is the storyteller, and we need that storyteller to be like dead on point with what we're doing. You know what I mean? So that's something that when I look for a commentator, I'm looking for someone that can enunciate, someone that knows the wrestling, stuff like that. And when I watch you, and I'm going to pay you this compliment right up front, you are very good at what you do. I'm going to tell you that right off the bat.
Thank you very much.
You are very good at what you do. And in an era now where I think the commentators are starting over, because now we're beyond, it's only WWE at this point. Now we have other federations that are trying to make a mark. And the way they make the mark, besides production, is who's telling the story. And I think you are doing it very, very well. So compliments to you.
Well, that certainly means a tremendous amount. And for everybody out there watching, no, I did not pay him off beforehand. That was a genuine
Not at all.
No, but that certainly means a lot. And you're very right. I mean, in a way, we are kind of being introduced now to a new wave of commentators. I mean, for the last 15 plus years, it's been all WWE for the most part. I mean, you've had, Impact Wrestling, but for a good portion of that, it's a guy like Mike Tenay, who you saw for almost a decade in WCW.
Yeah.
And you've seen a lot of these names kind of be recycled throughout the years. But in recent times, I mean, even the WWE guys like Dick Joseph and Tom Phillips, and then, of course, looking around to Ring of Honor guys like Ian Riccaboni, Matt Stryker reinventing himself, of course, with Lucha Underground, and then, even throw in a couple of cast-offs, if you will, in the MLW world, guys like Rich Bocchini and of course, Tony Schiavone, reigniting his career there. And then even to another extent, I mean, he's had a lot of success in the MMA and boxing and other combat sports world. But a guy like Mauro Ranallo, I mean, he's only really been introduced to the worldwide professional wrestling scene for the last handful of years. And you've kind of seen that new wave of commentators come in, seen, heard a few different voices, seen a few different ways things can go. And, like you said, on the indie level, you don't necessarily see it translate as well. So, hopefully when someone presents themselves in that professional manner, it does kind of stand out a little bit.
Yeah, because I noticed when I was watching WWE, which I don't do as much, they had, what's her name, Renee Young?
Renee Young.
And she's horrific. I'm like, why is she there? And some of the guys, even when they do, they had that one guy that tried to be like heavyset guy with the glasses. He was horrible. See, I'm like,
Renee Young, if you notice, she is sound bites.
Yes,
they're feeding her
lines,
and it's painful because her delivery of that sounds that way.
It does.
And as an announcer, like, I pick up on that because I'm like, I know for a fact that, like, because I've been in that situation. Early on in my career when I did radio, like, I had to like call basketball. Yeah. And I don't watch basketball. I know nothing about basketball, right?
I'm jealous of you.
Right? I know nothing. And the guy did that to me. He said, listen, I'm gonna write down
and feed it to you.
I'm gonna give you 20 lines, 20 standard lines. And then what I do is I'll say number 2, number 3, number 4, like in my hand, and you read that line.
Oh God,
I'm reading it, and like, it's live. So it's just starting my career.
My motto is low. I'm looking for bring back Joey Styles.
I'm starting, I know, right? And I'm stuttering over these lines, and he's like, all right, you know what? That's just say, well, that was great. That's it. And then my basketball announcing career was, well, that's great. That type of thing.
That's the round bouncy thing.
But you hit on a lot of things. You actually hit on a lot of people I wanted to speak about, because in today's time frame, I think and this is not in any necessary order, but I think you might agree with this. As far as the top commentators today, and I'm going to leave Tony Schiavone out of it because, like you said, he's reinventing himself, but like, he's really grandfathering everybody on this, and he is, for me, the voice of wrestling. I know people say Gordon Soley, who I did like, and they'll say a lot of other guys, Bob Cottle, etc. But Rod Trungard is another one that comes up. But Tony Schiavone, for me, is the voice of wrestling, and I will always listen to him talk about anything. He could talk about his car, and I'll be like pivoted on his face, But Rich Bocchini, who he does MLW with, he's great. He is a great commentator.
He's very good.
And there's a number of other ones, but I would say my top guys are Corey Graves, who Corey Graves grew on me when he first came out. I didn't think he was that great. I thought he was trying too hard, but he stopped.
And he plays the heel
very well.
Commentator very well.
He does, not in the sense that you're going to say up front, but he's very good at being a Jesse the Body Ventura. Yes. Because he is a heel who can tell a real fact without lying.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Absolutely. And then, Rich Bocchini, I love him. He just does it. His delivery is real well. Matt Stryker is a very good commentator.
I hate to say it, I was a fan of Coach.
Jonathan Coachman.
Jonathan Coachman, I was a fan of him because the way he delivered it. So you had to, he made you listen to him. And,
well, his time on ESPN.
Yes.
And being a sports broadcaster gave a good legitimacy to what he was saying.
Yes.
Right. Because it wasn't acting. But I got to say the benchmark for any guy out there today, and I don't know if you'll agree with this or not, Blake, is Mauro Ranallo. I think Mauro Ranallo is the voice right now. If you cut out all the old school guys that are still in this.
Yeah.
Mauro Ranallo, I think, is the guy that is who you need to try and be like, personally.
And I don't disagree with that at all. And I think one of the main takeaways from a guy like Mauro Ranallo is his versatility. And that's something that I always try to mimic.
Right.
Something that I try to take with me, not just as a play-by-play commentator, but, hey, you need somebody ring announcing. Throw me in that mix. You need someone doing some backstage interviews. I'll be your Mean Gene.
Right.
You need someone hosting your show. You know, I'll be your Scott Stanford. I have the ability to do all of those kinds of things, and that's gotten me the opportunities to do spots in different states, on different television networks. And, you know, guys can't pigeonhole themselves in a different spot. And this translates, you know, from in and out of the ring, you know, whether you're an in-ring performer or an auxiliary talent like myself. I mean, if you're a referee, you have to wear a couple of different hats when you're with an organization. You know, one of my best friends right now happens to be the head ref with Impact Wrestling. He does a lot more than just count the 1, 2, 3. You know, he does a lot within that organization. So, you know, looking around right now, a guy like Mauro, his ability to do boxing, MMA, to go from the main roster to NXT, to call that more indie style match as opposed to the more TV style match. You have to have that versatility because you never know what kind of situation you're going to be in, especially in a live, you know, high pressured environment like a WWE or an AEW or ROH or Japan or something like that.
Now, in your where I've seen you was Ring Warriors, and quickly we'll jump on them just a little bit. Now, you said we talked offline. You said they're scheduled to come back for a season 2. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, all talks right now, positive talks, everything pointing towards season 2. I think that the one positive takeaway here, if you want to look for the silver lining, any sort of absence, because a lot of times in professional wrestling, when we see the status quo disrupted or we see things kind of go off the rails a little bit, we expect doomsday. We think that's the end of everything. But, you know, Ring Warriors want to do things right. They don't want to rush. They don't want to do things that aren't in the best interest of the company and the performers. And one of those things happens to be just something as simple as, what venue are we going to use? Because as wrestling fans, I'm sure you've noticed over the last couple of years, not just Las Vegas itself, but Sam's Town Live, Sam's Town Casino has become somewhat of a hotbed for professional wrestling. Whether it's Impact or Ring of Honor, or even locally, Future Stars of Wrestling, FSW. So with Ring Warriors, and of course, you know, you can go back to my days. I know you guys used a couple of the photos there, but back in the Paragon Pro Wrestling days, you know, over the last 4 or 5 years, Sam's Town has been such a hotbed for pro wrestling. And now Ring Warriors is, you know, kind of looking at things, hey, maybe it's a little oversaturated. We want to distinguish ourselves a little bit more and find a different venue. So I know right now they're in the process of locking down a different venue. You know, since we last ran, some guys have, you know, undergone some changes with their own situations. A couple of guys have signed some contracts and things like that. So they're just getting all their ducks in a row right now. I don't have any, you know, firsthand, you know, breaking news kind of information, but from what I understand, things should be announced somewhat soon, and we're going to go back into production in early spring, and hopefully it'll be back on whatever outlet, you know, in you know, April or May.
Now, are they currently still taping?
Is that still the same owner?
Yeah, the owner. Well, over the last, I mean, I don't know how long you guys have followed the Ring Warriors product. I mean, obviously it's only been on WGN since the fall, but Ring Warriors has been an entity for roughly 20 years. It's undergone a couple of different transformations. Of course, you know, Hiro Matsuda, you know, laying the groundwork along with Howard Brody back in the mid-90s. They had Bruno Sammartino on commentary, Sir Oliver Humperdinck, one of my idols, Gordon Soley, who I'm sure we'll talk about again throughout the show. And just looking at, you know, different guys there, you know, putting things in place. Unfortunately, back at that time, they weren't really able to establish anything, but then they kind of reinvented themselves about 6 years ago or so, 7 years ago. They started doing some live events in different parts of the country as well as the Bahamas. And then when, you know, my first big break with them, and just really in general, we did some international television tapings back in the summer of 2013. And that kind of reestablished Ring Warriors on the national and worldwide platform. And ever since then, I mean, Howard Brody's always had a hand in things, and he's always had a hand in the, you know, kind of running things in front of the camera and whatnot. But, you know, right now, you know, we do have a little bit of a different ownership group, and, you know, that's was one of the reasons that helped get us onto WGN in general. So
Right.
some of the main pieces are in place. Guys like Howard Brody, Larry Brannon, who of course you've seen next to me on most of the Saturday mornings there before. He unfortunately had to step aside due to some injuries. He had a surgery and was recovering from that. But yeah, I mean, besides that, you know, it's been a lot of the same pieces. But yeah, I mean, when we did go to WGN, we did have a little bit of a different management group there with Global Genesis, which I'm sure you've seen some of the advertising as well at ringside.
Right. Well, he was holding you back. No offense to him. He was definitely holding you back.
Listen. Larry's a great guy. I love, you know, just kind of shooting the breeze with Larry. When it comes to commentary, listen, full disclosure, I would have liked him to, you know, kind of be a little bit more invested into the situation. But, you know, at the same
nail on the head.
Yeah, at the same time, you know, I guess in a way, the silver lining, at least I took out of it, is, hey, if you're going to not give it 100%, I'm going to give it 150%, and hopefully that will stand out.
It did stand out, and I'll tell you, the glass was half full because he made you look that much better.
Oh my God!
When I was watching,
like having a Huffy next to a Harley. I didn't understand.
I was watching it, and I'm like, "Is this guy awake? Like, does he need a 5-hour energy? Like, what's going on here?" And he says he's a worker, and I'm like, "Well, I've never seen you," and I've been watching wrestling for 35 years, you know.
Just to give you a little background very quickly on that, Larry actually is a former 3-time NWA World Tag Team Champion. Now, obviously, the NWA had a little bit of a dip back in the turn of the century time. But as a member, I don't know if you ever heard of the tag team, the New Heavenly Bodies. I'm sure, of course, you know about the Heavenly Bodies, Dr. Tom Pritchard and, you know, Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey. But they fully endorsed them and gave them the gimmick and essentially said, you can carry it on to the next generation. And along with Classy Chris Nelson, Vivacious Vito DiNucci, 3-time NWA World Tag Team Champion. And this is, I believe, in the year 2000, 2001, somewhere around then. And actually, Larry and I had done some commentary previously. If you want our first exclusive here on the show, Larry and I actually did some tryout commentary for the English version of AAA.
Oh, wow.
And,
really?
Yeah. And this was about a year and a half ago or so. We had the ability to put this in there. We cut about I think it was a full episode, I think 5 or 6 matches of AAA television.
Right.
And the goal was to have us be the English commentary team, I believe, for AAA airing in Europe.
Nice.
Oh, neat. Very neat.
Yeah, I think that was what the situation was. And, you know, Larry lives down here in Florida as well. And we would have had the ability to do it at a studio here in Florida.
Oh, nice.
So it would have worked out well. You know, I didn't love the commentary. You know, I thought Ring Warriors was a little bit better. So if you thought that wasn't great, I'm sure you probably wouldn't have loved our AAA endeavor. But, you know, unfortunately, we didn't get that bid from what I understand. I mean, nothing ever really materialized. But, yeah, so Larry and I had a little bit of experience together. But, yeah, I mean, you pretty much saw us, you know, kind of breaking in on the fly.
Because they started breaking once he was off. And they started putting other people in there. And nobody really was filling the shoes of a commentator. Like you had Marty Casals in there, and then you had somebody else. I forget who it was. And then they were just like, you know what, Blake, just do it yourself. just do it yourself. You're working for 2 people anyway. Just do it, you know. But it was I was like that. If anything, I was like, wow, man, you are carrying this guy like the entire show. I kind of liked when they had Austin Aries doing comedy, because he's got great mic work, you know, and I thought that was kind of neat, and that was a neat angle they did, because what they did, Charles, I don't know if you were watching that, they put him in, he was a minority shareholder of Ring Warriors. That's how they brought him in, right? This is back when he had the Impact title.
Yes.
So it kind of worked a nice little angle, and then Impact through Anthem has been doing a lot of stuff where we're like, hey, we're going to share talent here, we're going to share talent there, and which is awesome. True. Everybody has to like gang up together to do something, you know,
to make any
kind of headway, you know. But the fight,
and just to expound on that a little bit, Scott D'Amore, president of Impact Wrestling, gave us full usage of the Impact World Championship. I mean, he basically You know, every title, I mean, Austin Aries defended a championship, I believe, twice on our program.
Yeah.
And each time that happened, we had to clear that with the Impact office. And Scott D'Amore said, hey, basically, listen, you know, 80+ million opportunities to see us on WGN America. That's fine. Go ahead and put the Impact title out there.
Well, yeah, because
so that's something where, you know, you see that working relationship now with just about every company out there that isn't WWE, and it can certainly provide a nice infusion into the business, and it's very healthy in my opinion. And and just going back to Austin Aries real quick, to me as a commentator, even though Austin Aries isn't a full-time commentator, to be able to sit down next to a guy who called the action on Monday Night Raw and be able to keep up and stay pace and, you know, have a free-flowing broadcast and everything sounds the way it should. You know, that was very validating to me. And I also learned a lot to be able to sit down next to a personality, a guy who might not, you know, let you do your job the way you want to the entire time for whatever reason or not.
Right.
And it was very fun, actually. And I would love to do some more commentary with Austin Aries. I feel like we had a pretty solid rapport there to the little bit of time we were able to work together.
Yeah.
And, you know, listen, whether you like the guy or not, he is a pro. So it was a lot of fun.
That's the thing. Now, and the cool thing about Ring Warriors, too, is that they have a lot of great talent. I mentioned this before. And, like, for example, Marty Casals, who, to me, if he dials it back a smidge, he's got Kevin Sullivan down, to me.
Mm-hmm. Interesting comparison.
Yeah, I think he really has a Kevin Sullivan vibe to him, because I was like, you know, everybody's trying to do this, and you know, obviously plagiarism is the major thing in wrestling.
Sure,
everybody, you know, does everybody, but and I'm always a big fan of saying, hey, listen, just do yourself, you know what I mean, and be yourself on this, and you know, the reason why Roddy Piper was so amazing is because there was only one Roddy Piper, okay. That type of thing. But like with Marty Casals, like he had this thing where he was like, oh, he's sane, but he's crazy. You know what I mean? Like he didn't act over the top because he did the commentary with you. And obviously he kind of put out there that he was like a little loopy, but he wasn't like a dumbass. Like when like they used to make Hacksaw Jim Duggan act like and stuff like that.
Big goofball.
Yeah, like out. You know, he was a very calculating guy. And then you have the Southern Stomper. He's really good. Yeah, Luke Hawkins, I think his name is, or
Luke Hawks.
Luke Hawks. Yeah, he's a great talent, man. Like I was like, this is the star of the show right now. And then
they may have one of the Briscoe brothers.
They might have. Not when I was watching them.
No,
not when I was watching.
I could have sworn they did.
But they also had. There's another guy who's good, but the plagiarism is so bad. It's not even funny. Oh, what the heck's the guy? He comes out. He had a knee problem, and
Bogan.
No, he was the guy who looked like Triple. He's the guy. He's completely Triple H from 1999.
Hammerstone.
Yeah, Hammerstone. Like
as some people refer to him as Single H.
Single H.
Oh my God!
Oh damn!
It's dude. When you watch it, you're
awesome.
Like, stop. It's like, you know, when the guy comes in, he's like, oh, I look like The Rock, but I'm not him, but I'm his cousin. You know, it's like, stop.
We had one of those in Philly.
Yeah, we did. That's what I'm talking about.
Guy called himself the Smoke. The Smoke.
Yeah.
He had it down. He got him bookings. That was the whole, I guess.
Local. That was all.
Local. That was
never going to go anywhere else.
No, he sucked.
He did.
He horrible.
But now, I don't know if you guys follow Hammerstone on social media or you keep up with any of the goings on in his wrestling career. But since the last episode aired, he has significantly changed his look.
Oh, really?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he no longer looks like Triple H. He almost looks like the
Dean Ambrose.
He almost looks like the 10 years ago or so Chris Jericho. He kind of has the Brad Pitt and Fight Club vibe. And he's got new gear, new hair, new look, new attitude.
I mean, guys, you don't understand. Like his H for Hammerstone was a Triple H.
Really?
I got that on his tights. Like when he came out, the only thing he didn't do was spit water. But he did the move like he was going to spit water. I was like, what is this guy doing? Right? So
now
I play games.
He's actually had 2 WWE tryouts thus far. I know he's very, very much on their radar. And I would not be surprised if the switching up of the look did not have something to do with maybe something they said. So
I would think so, yeah.
We'll see how that materializes. But I do know tonight he's actually debuting at the former ECW arena, the 2300 arena up in Philly, as he's debuting for MLW tonight.
Oh, nice.
Oh, is it tonight?
That's tonight.
So he's having a little bit of a boost over the last couple of weeks. He's a guy on my list if you want to talk about, that's one thing working around the country the last few years. I've had the opportunity to see a lot of these different talents, and it goes back to the territory conversation you guys were having a couple of minutes ago, where you talked about it's not the same as it once was, but in a way we still have territories because you have guys primarily from the Pacific Northwest, primarily from the California area, primarily from the Florida area. So there still is a semblance of the territories, and competing and, being on these shows all around the country, I've been able to see a lot of these talents. Hammerstone is on my list, and he has been for the last couple of years, of breakout talent. And in 2019, I expect a lot more eyes to be on him as he has the total package. He could get it done in the ring. He's got a great look. He can talk. I mean, he can pretty much do it all. Now he's got a platform to be able to do it with Ring Warriors and now MLW. So hopefully that's the guy that we're talking about even more over the next few months.
God, honestly, if he's coming to Philadelphia, in the arena, I've wrestled there several times. If you don't got what it takes, they'll let you know. They will boo your ass
in grandiose fashion.
Let me tell you something. That tonight's card, it's for Major League Wrestling.
I've seen the card.
And the card is amazing.
It's a very good card.
That's why I was sad that you have to work, because I was like, we got to go to this, because
he wanted me to go, and I love going down to the arena because every now and then you run into an old friend.
Yeah,
I love going.
Now, just to give them props, we got Low Key versus Tom Lawler for the MLW title.
I see him. That's Low Key's always been the man.
Lucha Brothers, who I really like the Lucha Brothers a lot. I don't usually jump on bandwagons at all, but they are just that good. The Lucha Brothers, and they're taking on the Hart Foundation, who are great, by the way. Teddy Hart, Brian Pillman, and Davey Boy Smith Jr. They are phenomenal together.
Oh yeah,
I still do think Teddy Hart got one more chance, one more run in him. If he can keep his mouth shut.
He can keep his mouth shut. He can't keep his
mouth
shut.
I think right now we're seeing that develop. I think we're in the early stages of this resurgence here in the career of Teddy Hart. And if he keeps his head on straight, maybe
it's not even his head on straight. It's just keeping his mouth shut.
You know what it is, though? He has to not rest on his laurels and his family name.
Yes.
That's what happens, because let me tell you something. I'm not going to sit there and say the Harts were not good. I'm not going to say that. I'm also not going to say the best there is, the best there was, or best there ever will be, because that was a tagline that they started to believe. Remember, we used to say that we said that early on in our show, that sometimes these guys remember, or they start to believe their own hype.
Worst thing in the world was a person believing their own gimmick.
You know what I mean? And by all means, Bret Hart was great, but he wasn't Kurt Hennig. In my eyes, he was not Kurt Hennig, and that by far was the best wrestler that I've ever seen, was Kurt Hennig. Now, I think Teddy Hart just it's like, oh, well, I'm from the Hearts, so therefore you got to respect. No, I don't have to respect you, because you know why? There's a lot of second generation and third generation talent out there that sucks.
Well, you remember the line? 18 years I worked in the business. I had one line. I used to tell guys, wrestling, what we do is fake. I will beat you the hell up for real.
Yeah.
And I say it all the time when they got out of hand. And when I trained, it was the same thing. Don't let someone hurt you because of their name.
Blakey, he hit me in front of my kids.
Oh, that's not fair.
When I wrestled,
I love those little girls.
And he went right up to them. He said, "Oh, Uncle." Now, imagine this thing. They're little girls, and they come up and say, "Uncle Charles, Uncle Charles," and they give him hugs, and they're all happy to see him. And he goes, "How you guys doing?" He talks to them real nice. He goes, "All right, well, I gotta go. I'm gonna beat up your daddy in about 10 minutes." And then he walked away. And my one daughter's autistic, so she's like, "What does he mean he's gonna beat him up?" And she actually said to me yesterday, and my daughter's now 14, my autistic daughter. And she says, "Dad, when you wrestled, I didn't like it because I was afraid they were going to really hurt you." And I was like, "I was fine." She goes, "But Uncle Charles said he was going to hit you." And that's the kind of conversation. This is the kind of thing you installed in my kid. Now, years later, they're still worried about it.
The best thing is when you're doing shows. We used to run a show. We were part of ACPW. I was one of the owners. Me and LeGrand, and do shows, and my wife would be like, "I got a big house. I live out here, big house." And my wife would look and goes, "How many guys are sleeping on the couch tonight? How many guys do I have to set up for?" I was like, don't know yet, She was like, "Who's coming to town? Am I cooking?" I'm like, "Just order pizza," shit like that. And she'd be like, "Okay, but you tell those guys they better clean up after themselves, this, and this." And she would come to the shows every now and then because she used to hate me she's hate watching us do shows because, you know, I was big. I do the hardcore stuff. And every time before I walked out, she goes, if you come home limping or act like you're hurt, don't come home. And I'll be like, okay. I'll be like, yeah, that's it.
And let me tell you something.
Yeah.
When I wrestled for 3 years. And
if you want to call it that, but he was out there.
And when I was out there, like I wrestled for 3 years, and it was hard for me because being a full-time dad, I was working 2 jobs because I was working.
And I wasn't.
UPS and I was working the other thing. But you were in the back promoting. You weren't doing fucking shit. But I was trying to get on. I was trying to get on. You know, just like you said, I'm showing up every day. I had my gear with me. Blah blah blah. Dude, just slap me around. I'll be happy to jump out in the ring. You know, that type of thing. And my last match, I took a suplex on my neck, which reactivated a car injury, and I lost a week's worth of work, a week and a half worth of UPS work, where I work at UPS. And my wife's like, "You're not getting paid with wrestling, and now you're not getting paid for real. So you better cut this shit out right now and be done." So I was like, I can't afford a car. Wrestling was the only thing I had. Yeah. So it was my midlife crisis. But
I don't understand. Blake, I know you've been around for a long time, but we used to be sitting in the back rewriting the whole show. We write the show weeks before, have it done. Day of, I'm rewriting the show in the back. With everyone coming back there throwing me ideals, I'd be like, if you don't get the fuck away from me right now. And there'd be 30 people walking up. How about we do this? How about you get out? You know, it was every show had to rewrite something.
I used to go around him when he was writing the show, and I used to do like on Manhattan Melodies with the Muppets and all.
Yeah, they would just.
I'd be like, "Yo, Dan's here."
Yeah, well, he would tell me
like Dan showed up.
Who came. A lot of guys would show up, you know, trying to get on the card, and you know, if they were good, I used them because one of my favorites I always say now, back in the day, because he was working for Pro Wrestling Unplugged.
Yes,
was when Adam Cole showed up. I've known Adam. He came. I'm like, what are you doing here? He was wrestling with Aramis.
Yes.
And he goes, Adam's trying to get on the show. I'm like, he's here? He's like, yeah, bring him in. I got a spot for Adam Cole.
Right.
And that was one kid that you look at him now. I'm like, holy shit. You know, he knew back then he always had the look.
Right.
He had the skills.
Yeah.
It was just how far he was going to take it.
Right.
And
well, anything in life is networking.
Yeah, it's all networking. And he was just that, even then he was that good. And I was like, you know, we're going to be watching him one day. Sure enough, when I'm watching him, I sit there, I was like, yo, he was sleeping on my couch one day. You know, it's pretty cool to sit there and say that with guys. But it's like, this is crazy.
But, you know, the things like I said, like when he would be sitting there writing, I would cup my hands over my mouth and be like, oh, Dan's here. Is he going to wrestle tonight? Oh, you know, like stuff like that.
And I say, Dan, go help set up the ring. Get away from
me. What happened. But, like, Blake, tell me, who were some of the commentators that kind of like got you into to say, I want to do this?
Well, I was going to ask him one question first, Blake. Who are some of the wrestlers that used to piss you off?
Well,
there's always a worker that pisses you off.
Blake, whatever one you want to answer.
And you know it's true. You don't have to hold punches here, but if you don't want to speak about it, I'm good. But there's always
we hold no punches on the show. Yeah. So just give me
I will say this, and it's something that, you know, as I've gotten older and, you know, as I progressed in the business, I have gained a new appreciation for guys I thought differently of when I was younger. For instance, I used to absolutely hate Ric Flair.
Really?
But in reality, that means I loved Ric Flair because he was doing his job.
That's right. You're absolutely right.
You know, because as a youth, I'm a huge fan of Sting.
Yes, sir.
You know, I'm a huge fan of Lex Luger. I'm a huge fan of the Steiner brothers. I was a big WCW, NWA guy growing up in Virginia.
Yeah.
But it's one of these things where, you know, a lot of times I look back and, you know, heels like ravishing Rick Rude. You know, I used to hate guys like that, but in reality, it means that they elicited the reaction I wanted. Like, I'll give you the flip side. Yeah. I used to hate a guy like Dino Bravo because I thought he was terrible. You know, I didn't think, like when I was watching Dino Bravo, this guy's, you know, slow and lumbering, you know, I didn't like him.
Yeah.
But, you know, I look at a guy like Rick Rude and he's in there with the Jake Roberts, you know, or he's in there with an Ultimate Warrior, and it's eliciting a reaction from me because he's doing his job. And that's something that I really grew to appreciate as I got older. One guy really that stands out to me that, you know, in retrospect, I think about how I used to think about him when I was younger, and then I think about how I think about him now, and that would be the Enforcer Arn Anderson.
Yeah.
That's a guy who I used to just despise, but it was really because he was that dastardly second to Ric Flair in the Four Horsemen.
He was the man.
And that's someone.
He was the man.
Yeah, and Arn is the man. And here's how I always describe Arn Anderson. He's your friend's dad. When you go over their house, you don't want to piss them off.
Right.
He's always had that look that he's, kind of tough, older look, even when he was, younger than me. And it's one of those things where that's always resonated with me. And that kind of gritty, tough, stance and look, that's something that I've always, thought that's what a heel should really represent.
Well, he was old school. He was old when they still believed in kayfabe. That's old school.
He was very old school, old school. And you had thrown out Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, and that's a guy whose talent I always thought was tremendous because the matches he had I always enjoyed. Though 99% of the time I was rooting for his opponent, whether it was the Texas Tornado, whether it was Bret Hart. Whether it was some of these other guys that he got in there with, even just some of
Kurt Hennig can make shit shine. He can make shit shine. We always have an argument here about different workers, and I always told him that Dolph Ziggler can make anyone look good,
and he does.
And he does. He makes people look good. Even
really
if they're not. I mean, he just does. He can make you look good, and that's where the Kurt Hennig was. He made you look
Blake,
good.
if you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I'm 32.
32. All right. So you're actually a little bit young. You're still young.
I got kids your age.
You're still young, but like this is why I like him. And there's a reason why I liked him because he said it. Because I used to like watching NWA, WCW, and that's exactly what 32. I did. Did you notice the difference between the two products in the sense of the cartoony, over the top WWF of the 80s versus the I'm going to take you in a bar and beat you with a baseball bat NWA? And did you react differently?
I did, but in that cut and dry sense where you can really distinguish it like that, that's something I feel is very 2020. It's very much in retrospect and looking at it through, our eyes now. But back then, I couldn't tell you the differences in that fashion, but I could tell you it was different. I mean, the WWE had that lighter, bubbly, more, hey, the baby face is on top kind of feel. Where the NWA, it's like, I want my Dusty Rhodes, I want my Sting, and I want them to kick the Four Horsemen's ass.
Right.
You're the NWA, you're kind of fighting more from underneath. And with the WWF, you were kind of, looking at the top, Hogan,
it was very,
it was next step up to Hogan.
Right. It was very superhero versus supervillain in WWF, if that makes sense.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. And it's something that I very much enjoyed. I mean, unfortunately, the WWF only really came to town roughly 2, maybe 3 times a year at that point. So it was not something that live I'd be able to see very often. But just as much as I'm watching the Power Hour and Saturday Night for the NWA and WCW, I'm watching Superstars and Challenge and Mania and all these different things every week. I was just as big of a WWF fan as I was WCW. But I guess just based on the proximity, I was drawn a lot closer to the NWA guys just based on the fact that, they came 5 minutes from my house, once or twice even a month. So thankfully, as a young kid, my parents, supported my habit and they always took me to the events and whatnot. So, I mean, that's something where wrestling, in my 32 plus years, wrestling's pretty much been a part of it from the jump. I mean, I can't really remember a time where I wasn't liking wrestling. I mean, I was watching, TV as a very young kid. I mean, in fact, as crazy as it sounds, I was actually at a very young age in my dad's arms at Starrcade '88.
Wow!
So,
hold on.
Yeah. So I mean,
hold on. I was at Starrcade '88. I was at Starrcade '88. Yeah. I was 17, but I was at Starrcade '88.
So I have to ask you, since you have the firsthand experience, and that probably just made me cry because it was so loud. But how loud was the scope when Rick Steiner upset Mike Rotunda?
That was, wait a minute. Do you know how you jump up and you get lightheaded? I remember I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was that's 40 to 38 years ago, 30 something like that.
No, not that long.
No, well, for me, it's up there. And it's 36, 30.
No,
how many years ago was that for me? I'm 50. I'm old.
It's 19.
Yeah. Well,
it was about 30 years ago.
Yeah. Well, you jump up and you make yourself lightheaded. I remember that clearly. I was lightheaded. I remember that because, all the guys, you had people crying next to me and shit. They were so happy. It's crazy. And that's what actually got me into wrestling because when I graduated high school, I went to college, I came back, and we were playing football. A guy walked up to me. Next minute, I know I'm at the Monster Factory. So it was like, okay, am I going to do this? You know, type thing. And when I went over to the Monster Factory, I walked in. You know, I thought I was a big, big shit. Yeah. And you look over, and I'm like, yo, I'm little. Right? I was 325 pounds and looked like small. A little bitch. Yeah. Yeah. And you learn real quick respect for the business. You do. I remember Larry Sharp doing clotheslines, and that's probably my best story ever. And I was throwing clotheslines, but I didn't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
And he stands up on the ringside. He goes, "Come here." And I'm like, "What?" "This is how you throw a clothesline." And I'm standing on the apron. He hits me, knocks me off my feet. And he goes, "If they don't fucking duck, fuck them." And I was like, "Yes, sir." And after that, when I threw a clothesline, I tell dudes, if you don't duck, you ain't gonna like me. But that's one of my best stories. But the respect you gain with all the people that were there was just incredible.
Now you mentioned your dad taking you to Starrcade '88. Your dad is Neil, correct? Yes. He, I've been posting obviously on Facebook. You know,
dude, your dad is awesome. Let me just say that.
He's
I'm
awesome.
saying that from the jump. Your dad is awesome.
Yeah, he loves
Thank you very much.
he loves every post on there, and he's obviously very supportive, and he looks proud as all hell.
He
should.
His
kid. And he really does. And it's just awesome. If you could plug your dad and his business, because your dad is such a supportive aspect I can see in your life.
We would actually have your dad on the show just to talk.
But we might get the real insights then.
Yeah, bro.
No shoot interviews yet. You know? But I will say though, before I jump into, what Dad, has done and his support and all that stuff. Yeah. My dad's favorite wrestler is someone you would never guess.
Barry Horowitz.
That's actually a great guess. But my dad's favorite wrestler is actually the Iceman Dean Malenko.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Sweet.
And it was sweet. It was one of these things where we'd be watching, whether it's Nitro or Saturday Night or Thunder, whatever it might be, and Dean would come out. That cerebral look, just that seriousness, he meant business, and that's something my dad always was drawn to. And it was funny because one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, especially to watch, is Rey Mysterio Jr. Okay. And his battles with Dean Malenko in the early part of the Cruiserweight division was something that really drew me into WCW and just wrestling in general. And it was cool because, my dad's rooting for Dean, I'm rooting for Ray. It was almost like the father-son in the ring anyway. So that was always pretty cool. A lot of those battles there and the summers of 96 and 97, a lot of good stuff there. But yeah, my dad's always been very supportive, whether it's, taking me to the toy store to buy figures, whether it's, watching wrestling with me. I mean, I think he just always saw the passion in me and saw how it affected me and just lit me up, just being around it, that he knew that was a passion of mine. And I've just always been drawn to, commentary and this and that. And, I've always visioned myself as a sports commentator, but, when I was younger, whether it's playing with the action figures or whether it's playing the video games, I'm sitting there calling the action. I was just inherently just sitting there, whether it's on the floor with the toys or whether it's, staring at the screen, I'm calling what I'm seeing. And I think he saw that from a young age and could tell, hey, not only does this kid really love this, but I guess maybe, I couldn't tell you, but I guess maybe at that point in time, you could see the framework of, hey, maybe there's something here. Maybe he's got something.
Well, can I ask you one thing? I mean, as of right now, since they brought Ray back, okay, I was a fan of him in Lucha Underground.
Yeah.
I thought the way he carried himself was better. What do you think about the aspect, the way they're using him now? I know you got to be watching. I just have to ask. I don't want to cut you off, but I just had to ask because we had a debate about this one day. I think he's helping bring up the new talent.
Yeah.
As like the old guy, which,
he is.
Yeah.
He is. And he's beat up.
Yeah, you can see
he's beat up.
He's beat up. But how do you feel about them bringing him in the way they're doing it now? I just had to ask really quick. I didn't want to cut you off. It was just I had to ask.
It's all good. It's all good. It's your show. I'm just living the dream with you.
No, because you want to get someone else's aspect who's in the business. I mean, Ray's getting up there. He's been around for a long time.
Yeah, a long time.
Ray's a bona fide legend. I mean, he's arguably the face of Lucha Libre at this point. I mean, he's right there with El Santo. I mean, the guy, Mil Masters. I mean, he's literally on the Mount Rushmore of lucha libre and Mexican competitors in the history of professional wrestling. But looking at Rey Mysterio, I'm not a huge fan of the way they brought him back. I mean, it seems like he didn't really hit the ground running. He just kind of got thrown into that upper mid-card mix, which is fine in a way. I mean, he's had some fantastic matches with Andrade Cien Almas, or I guess Almas now, or Andrade, whatever they're calling him.
I think it is now, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just Andrade. And, you're talking about they've had a couple of great matches on SmackDown. I mean, that first one was fantastic. The 2 out of 3 falls was very good as well. And you're seeing him give the rub, if you will, to that next big Hispanic star. And if you remember, about a decade ago, this is almost the exact same formula that they use with Alberto Del Rio.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
And unfortunately, Alberto Del Rio, even though he had a great run, whether it's in WWE, I mean, he had some big high-profile matches, former World Heavyweight Champion, of course, his Impact run where he won a World Championship there. But Alberto El Patron, Del Rio, I mean, it just seems like, he couldn't last as long as they wanted him to in the spot that they wanted him to last. And you look at a guy like Andrade, and it seems like he's the future. I mean, he's got the look, I mean, he's got the skill, and you've got everything, that total package that they want to see.
Absolutely. And
they're probably just trying to associate Mysterio with him to give him that, not just the Hispanic rub, but just to give him that rub in general as this is a big future star, because the guy's young and he has a lot left to bring to the table.
In actuality, when you watch him work, that he has to slow down for other people.
Yeah.
He's so much. Yeah. He's faster.
He's a fireball, man.
He's a fireball when you watch it. Like, you can see him slowing himself down for guys to keep up. Which,
you know what,
have to pace yourself.
If you look at what he did before, and then you watch Rey Fenix now, Rey Fenix is unbelievable.
Yes.
Tremendous talent.
Oh my God, like unbelievable. And you say, oh, Pentagon's really good, but like Rey Fenix is totally. But like Rey Fenix, you're like, holy shit, this guy can move. The only other guy I saw that was similar to that was what was his name? El Tigre Uno. He was the X Division champion.
Yes.
Yeah. He was also another talent that I said, wow, look at this guy. He's really got Rey Mysterio down.
But the hard part for some of these guys is other workers keeping up with them.
Yeah.
If they're not in the ring with another person to their talent, it's hard for them to pace. It's just a tough pace. Because I worked one time, I said, dude, I'm not going to keep up with you. He goes, don't worry about it. I think I took 2 bumps the whole match. And I was like, holy shit, I walked out blowing up. Yeah. He walked out, changed the match, and did another match like 2 minutes later. I was like, you got that, son. Yeah. But yeah, I just had to ask you that question because I was just wondering how you felt about that. That's just
no, absolutely.
That's something we were arguing about.
I don't think they're utilizing any sort of bad manner. I would certainly like to see him highlighted a little bit more, but as long as they're not burying him, I think we have to come with the compromise of, that's just where he's at in his career.
What do you think they brought him back because he was going to start his own little league thing? Remember, he was doing that?
Yeah, he was in talks to get that going.
And he was they said that AEW, in the beginning wanted him. Do you think they brought him back just to sign him to make sure he couldn't sign also?
Well, I'd like to believe that WWE had more intimate knowledge of the development of AEW, even as far back as All In.
Yeah.
And I would imagine, a guy like Rey Mysterio is certainly someone who, of course, was a part of that event. Yes. He's somebody that you would have expected to be targeted as a key cornerstone. Absolutely. I mean, let's remember, Cody is a Rhodes. And Dusty Rhodes is one of the guys who put WCW on the map. And Dusty Rhodes had helped put the blueprint out there of legitimate competition, whether it's in the NWA back in the 80s or helped with WCW back in the 90s as well, along with Eric Bischoff. And I think it's very known that international talent, cruiserweights, those kind of competitors bring a different flavor. And to the point where if you can get the best of all time, a guy like a Rey Mysterio, you mix in a guy like Chris Jericho, these are the big names where people start turning heads.
Yes.
There's a rumor that Goldberg potentially could be involved.
I heard that.
I mean, there's a lot of things out. There's a lot of things out there to where a guy like Rey, he wouldn't necessarily be a game changer in terms of like everything just going to swing towards AEW, but he would be a difference maker in the fact that, hey, we got to give this thing some credibility, just like with Chris Jericho, where if you're looking at an all-time great, They're signing on the dotted line for more than just a one-off kind of scenario.
Exactly.
And you got to take it seriously.
That's the truth. No, that's
absolutely. I'll totally agree with that. There's legitimacy to it. Yes, absolutely.
Have you tried to reach out to anybody who's in production for AEW?
Because you'd be great as an announcer for them.
Yeah.
Dude, that'd be awesome.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. I would love to be a part of the AEW. I've kind of done some preliminary work, I guess, in that aspect. I mean, just full disclosure without getting into any, major details. I mean, I have spoken with every major company out there. So, I mean, it's not something where, I'd like to believe they all know who I am at this point. It's just a matter of, finding the right fitting and the right timing for something to work. With AEW, I don't know for sure, but I am pretty sure that Jim Ross will probably end up doing their commentary.
I think they said
his contract is not up.
Yeah.
I believe his contract is up sometime.
I also heard that they said Don Callis was potentially going to do.
A team of Jim Ross and Don Callis to me is very realistic.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see that being something that, very much could come to fruition. Don Callis, I'm sure with Impact Wrestling, is going to be able to be able to do AEW. I mean, I'd imagine that's not something they'd hold him back from, especially if it gives Impact a little bit more exposure. Jim Ross, like I said, I think his contract is up sometime around or after WrestleMania. Right. And at that point, I think you're going to probably see some sort of movement in terms of announcing him calling the All In 2 Double or Nothing show at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Vegas. Yeah. And, other than that, I'm just kind of connecting some dots here and using some inside knowledge. I think Justin Roberts probably will be a ring announcer.
Right.
Nice. I don't really know for sure, but I do believe that's probably the case. And the only other spot that really leaves right now potentially could be some sort of backstage interviews. Yeah. And that's something that I would, I'd jump on that opportunity in a heartbeat just because, the exposure and, potential it could lead to down the line and, maybe being under the learning tree of the Jim Ross. But, I mean, hopefully that's will kind of materialize, sometime in the next little while. But I will say, I mean, I do have a couple of other things cooking right now.
Here we go. It's going to get good.
It's not official by any means. And, we're not going out there and saying anything more than this at this point. But hopefully in the next couple of weeks, maybe something more official can come about. Mm-hmm. And it looks like it might be time in my career to evolve.
Go there. There you go. And you know when it has to happen, you do it.
So we will see exactly what happens as there have been some changes within that family in recent weeks. So, that's a goal of mine because not just of the exposure, but when you're talking about, pretty much the number one independent organization around, it certainly helps you out in different ways. So, that is my goal there. And that's something that the wheels are turning. So hopefully we can get something more concrete in the next couple of weeks.
We really hope you get the shot, but it says just announced Ray Phoenix and Pentagon Jr. over at AEW.
They signed?
They signed.
There you go. There you go.
Is that,
well, you know what, though?
That's breaking news.
Yeah. And let me tell you something. I mean, and I was about to get into this, but we get into this. Right?
It's like shit.
But the, with Impact moving over to Pursuit, which is like a non-existent channel on like DirecTV.
Yeah, I get Comcast. I don't get it. And honestly, before Impact announced it, I had never even heard of it.
I got
right, exactly.
It's channel 347. I got it.
and here's the thing too, like with MLW, because BN Sports had a contractual disagreement with Comcast, they were dropped from the Comcast lineup. So thankfully, MLW did the right thing, and they said, "All right, we're going to start broadcasting our shows on the YouTube channel."
Yes.
So they're still on BN Sports, but they're on the YouTube. Like tonight's stuff at the arena is a live show for BN Sports.
Now, is that streamed on YouTube or put up later?
I don't know. I think it might be streamed on YouTube. It might be.
Last time when they do it normally, they'll put it up later.
I think they break it up into hour segments.
Yeah. Right.
And then use it as episodes. But I was like, I went on Twitch and signed up for a Twitch account, which I have no reason to have a Twitch account. You'll find
Right.
in about 10 years, Blake, you're going to find it. You're going to find that you don't have time for a lot of stuff. And that's the thing. And I jumped on this Twitch thing. And
well, we are going to shoot that. Hey, we knew him. He was on our show.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But the thing is, with Twitch, you have to watch the show when it airs. Like there's no episodes that I can go back. Like I said, oh, well, I'll go on Twitch and I'll watch Impact Wrestling on that. And no, I can't. And I'm not going to be at my computer on a Friday night at 10 o'clock. Right. It's not happening. You know, so
yeah,
I think Impact
I thought it was more of an on-demand service.
Yeah. So I think, and I think there's a lot of subscription that's involved in that when you go to that particular channel for Impact Wrestling and all. So at that point, I don't think they're at the point where they can demand that. Personally.
No, I definitely agree with you there. And that's actually something, you know, with the Ring Warriors, I've had a little bit of, you know, back and forth with where, you know, talking about everybody's available, you know, in different fashion, and Ring Warriors has not really put anything out there for free at this point. I mean, if you don't have WGN, I mean, now we're on Amazon Prime, but again, you get a 30-day free trial, but again, after 30 days, you know, then you got to pay for it. So that's something that, you know, I know they're in the process of trying to find some different options there. I don't know whether it's a Roku channel or whatever it might be, but you know, that's something that, you know, I think it's important, especially when you're kind of on the ground level trying to really, you know, push up a product and get more exposure for it. You know, you need as many eyes on it as possible. And, you know, to me, I'd rather take a little bit of I don't even know if you can consider it a loss, but take a little bit of a hit, if you will, you know, now to be able to pay that off down the line. I mean, I like to play the long game, and I think that's very important, especially in professional wrestling. I mean, you need to think long term. I mean, a lot of times, you know, I mean, it's as simple as things as, you know, going back in the day, our storylines were drawn out a lot more, and we liked them a lot more. And then when you see them truncated and not as, you know, drawn out and you know, moving a lot more briskly, then we don't get as invested. And I think you can say the same thing for just about anything. And, you know, with that being said, I think, you know, Impact, you know, whether it's, you know, Pursuit or what it is, I mean, they're going to have to, you know, figure out something to, you know, keep the eyes on the product. I mean, you know, they're an entity that's been around almost 20 years. So they're firmly woven into the fabric of professional wrestling, but it's a matter of getting people to take Impact seriously again for the first time in almost a decade. And that could be a pretty tall task. And especially when you're losing talent, you don't have a major network at this point. I mean, things are you know, seemingly more disorganized than they have been in other times. But I mean, it's hard as a fan to, you know, maintain that faith.
Now, I don't have an inside track, but I think the move to Pursuit was a reaction, because I believe what happened was, and I'm putting, like you said, putting the dots together. Their pop contract was coming up for renewal, and apparently Pursuit is in some sort of alignment with Fight TV, and they're on Fight TV, that FITE TV or Fight Network or something like that. So I think what it was is that we need to have some on-air presence, period, until we figure things out. So they just went with what they had, you know, access to, with just to stay on TV. And I equated to when Metallica lost Jason Newsted, what they do, they put out that horrible CD just to say, hey, we're still here. Metallica is still relevant, and nobody's going to like Saint Anger, but hey, it's okay. But we put it out because we're here. And I think that's the scenario with that. And unfortunately, they were building, and then this is going, I think, is going to drop them off again. I think they're going to be double working to get themselves back up if they get on another network. Now, real quick, because we are running out of time, I did want to say this. I was watching, because I DVR Ring Warriors, right? So I watched the one. I get down to like the last couple episodes, and I think the second to last episode was Ken Resnick and the female commentator. I don't know. I don't remember her name.
Maria Prekagis.
Yes,
she's on. She does some work at ESPN. I know, with the rodeo stuff.
Okay. Yeah, they did like a year in review. It was like almost like the season ender or something like that. And I said, okay, well, they're probably taking off for Christmas and stuff like that. And so I had one more episode, and I let it sit there for a while. And I wasn't like, because I had other stuff I was doing, you know, around that holiday season. So I said, let me watch this last episode of Ring Warriors, right? So I jump on there, and it was instead of Ring Warriors, it was one of those infomercials for a air fryer. But it turned out it was an air fryer that I just bought. So I said, well, there's a nice little coup for me. I wasn't going to watch wrestling, but now I can figure out how this damn thing works because I just bought it, right? So I was like, all right, well, it's a double whammy at this point.
I was going to say, little did you know the air fryer defeated Jeff Cobb for the grand championship.
Yeah, right, exactly.
He is now.
Oh my God, that's great. If you could, Blake, you, like I said, you have some new gigs that you just jumped on. I know you just posted. If you can let everybody know what's going on with you coming up.
Yeah, actually, in the last little over a year, I expanded into the MMA world. I've been knocking at the door for a long time, really wanted to get involved with MMA, as I certainly see that as a fast-growing combat sport and something that my skill set, could translate easily from professional wrestling, especially from the ring announcing aspect. Because, full disclosure, I can call any sport out there, but when it comes to MMA, play-by-play, I'm not as I don't have as intimate of knowledge of the holds and the grappling and all that stuff. So I think that's something where I feel more comfortable inside the octagon doing the ring announcing. Yeah. So finally, between some connections actually through professional wrestling and some other opportunities, I was able to get in touch with a guy, started working with a company down here called XFN, Extreme Fighting Nation. And I've been working with them for the last little over a year or so. And then I actually made a contact through the South Florida or the Florida MMA award show, which is actually coming up here in a couple of weeks. I'm actually nominated for Ring Announcer of the Year.
Nice.
Pretty excited about that.
Awesome.
Hopefully be able to take that one home. We'll find out here in the next couple of weeks. The award's 3 weeks from tomorrow. So
we're rooting for you.
Yeah, post it on Facebook.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Not sure when I find out about the victory, if it's the day up or what. But,
right. Right.
That's something where the guy in charge there actually, I believe, is co-promoting a show down here at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Fort Lauderdale in Hollywood, Florida. And that's going to be a nice big fight there, professional fight, MMA. So it's my first opportunity working with a different organization. So hopefully, the dominoes start falling and, the ball starts rolling downhill a little bit and get the momentum there because, listen, we love wrestling and whatnot, but unless you're in certain places, the money isn't where we want it to be. But with MMA, I mean, there's a lot more money involved. So, listen, we all got to make a living. So that's something where, so that's something, once we treat this like a business, then, hopefully we see those rewards and benefits. And that's something where, hopefully, again, like I said, that will keep things rolling there. But I got that coming up. And then also, some other big shows. I've actually started. Well, I know I alluded to an organization a few minutes ago, but I've actually started working with WWN, doing some other stuff. I actually started working. I don't know if you ever heard of the company called IPW, Hardcore Wrestling. It was a big organization back in the early 2000s that kind of resurrected themselves here over the last couple of months, and I've started working with them. I got a big show coming up in a couple of weeks with Ultimo Dragon.
Nice.
Which should be very exciting. I actually had the privilege to call an Ultimo Dragon match at WrestleCade this past year, a great tag team match where he was teaming with Juventud Guerrera, taking on John Morrison and PJ Black, and that was a barn burner, if you will. And so got Dragon on that show. And coming up actually the day after that, got a big show down here. I worked very closely actually with Gangrel. I'm sure you guys remember him very well.
Yeah.
He's a very good friend of mine, and I help him out with his school. He's got a great school down here, Gangrel's Wrestling Asylum. He's a fantastic trainer. I mean, some of the top talent you've seen out there. He trained Rusev. He's had a hand in training a lot of other people that are high up on the independent scene and some in NXT as well. And Gangrel's having a big he's had some student shows, but this is his first foray into a regular show, and it's actually being held at another casino down here, the Casino at Dania Beach. And listen to this main event. I think, Danny, you might have seen it or not. I'm not sure. But it's going to be Gangrel teaming with Badass Billy Gunn to take on Mosh and Thrasher, the headbanger.
I saw it 2 days ago.
That was awesome.
It doesn't get much more attitude era than that. So
that's just great.
Very excited that was able to come together. The Headbangers, another team that they're two great guys. I'm actually pretty close with Mosh. Yeah. And those are guys that they both live down here in South Florida. So going to make that work. And, maybe that's where I can pick Billy's brain a little bit about AEW as he's one of their producers there. And, so we got some great stuff coming up. We're also doing a show for Gangrel at the BB&T Center, which is where the Florida Panthers play, and that's actually going to be on a game day. It's going to be right in front of the building, right before the Panthers game. So, I mean, pretty much all the fans walking up to see the Red Wings play the Panthers will get to see some great pro wrestling as well. So, got all that stuff coming up, and hopefully I'm going to be making a trip to New York for WrestleMania weekend, and we can have some big stuff going on there as well.
Are we going to get him to promote his dad's thing right quick?
Oh yeah, let's promote your dad's business.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. My dad has invented something where you didn't think you could invent something. I mean, he didn't reinvent the wheel, but he came pretty close. He has been in the car care industry for well over 50 years. He's been from New York all the way down to Virginia to Florida, wherever he's been. He's been in the car detailing business. Used to primarily specialize in classic Mustangs, but now he pretty much does everything. And he invented a product a handful of years back called Chadwick's Triple Play. It clean, polishes, and protects your car. And the best part is you need no water. It's fantastic for the environment. Really? There's instructional videos online. Just search Chadwick's Triple Play. There's a YouTube channel there where he goes step by step and tells you exactly how to do it each and every time. And it's great. I mean, you're talking about something where you can go in your driveway. You can be in the parking spot at the bank. I mean, you can literally be anywhere and wash your car. And it gives it a fantastic finish. It looks great. It feels great. And you can use the product on just about anything as well. I mean, you can use it in household items. I mean, I use it on my countertops and my tables and different things.
Really?
It's very multi-purpose, and it doesn't, there's no greasy finish, nothing like that. And he's developed a tremendous formula, and it's something that's continued to evolve over the last handful of years. Now he's endorsed by the likes of people like Vanilla Ice. He's got all different kinds of high-level car people endorsing his product. He works a lot here with the Concord d'Elegance down in South Florida. Really high-level stuff. And he sells the product all over the world, Chadwick'sTriplePlay.com. He has it on Amazon as well. You can purchase it on there. And it's a really great product. And, it's always good to know, you're buying something from, somebody that started it themselves. It's not a big organ. It's not a big corporation. It's not some, big factory kind of thing. I mean, a lot of times my dad's sitting there physically doing it himself. I mean, he'll put his hands on the bottle. He'll write you a letter. He signs it himself. I mean, he very much wants to be hands-on and involved with his customers. And that's, to me, what helps separate him from, something you buy at Target.
Yeah, he's not like that Dr. Pillow guy, right?
And all I'm saying, on your days off, you better go over there and give him a hand.
Yes,
that's all.
That's what I say.
My dad, as great as he's been to me, I try to reciprocate in any way I can. A lot of times I probably get in his way when it comes to the car stuff. But
you can carry in tape boxes. That's what I tell my sons. They're grown, but you can do something.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
It's one of these things. I think at this point, he's just happy I actually keep my car clean because here's the thing. Even at 32 years old, even though I might, not be as new school as a lot of the people are these days, for some reason, a lot of the people in my generation, we just don't care as much about keeping the car clean. I don't know what it is. It's just not a big priority, but that's something, over the last couple of years, I really try to be more conscious of. Hopefully he notices. And you listen, it's always great to drive around in a nice, clean, shiny car. So it's certainly a great feeling. And listen, he's doing a great job with it. I'm really proud of him, and I'm happy to see it grow. And I'm really excited to see where it goes next.
Well, you let your father know we're sitting here right now. I'm on Amazon, and I just ordered some.
So there you go.
Oh, you're the man.
I got the 32-ounce AAA 32-ounce bottle. I just got it. Just so you know.
Oh, there you.
I'm sending your dad a friend request. I'm like, because your dad seems just cool. He seems cool as shit. I'm sorry.
You know what? He might actually be watching right now. He knows about it, and he was asking me when I'm going on and stuff. So
cool.
I don't know. I know he's a big beach guy, and for the first time in a few weeks, we look to have maybe a beach day. So he could be sitting on the beach right now.
Yeah, that's nice. Well, I'll be sitting down there. I'm going to Key West the end of March. So
nice.
Yeah, I'll be down there 5 days for my birthday.
And I'm actually in the process of trying to organize a trip for the show to go down into the Tampa area.
Well, whenever you guys plan that, I mean, I hope you plan it around an event or a show or something, and hopefully I'm booked on it, and we can maybe do something live.
Blake, we're gonna plan it around beers, is what we're gonna do.
Well, I guess we can go live at beer.
We go live at the bar, right at the bar. There you go. There you go. Look, here you go. The brand's putting it up right now. You put it up there.
I got it on Amazon. I'm hitting.
I got an Amazon credit card, so that's a bad thing.
Yeah. 2 sales right there.
It's only now it's only 9 left in stock. So hurry up and grab some, because we might grab.
And I would buy, but my car payments are done in May, and I want to wait and see if the car.
And if you ever seen his car, your dad would punch him in the face.
I need it so bad. I need it so bad.
Your dad would listen, this guy, no.
So thank God you do those shows, because otherwise I don't know what the hell you're putting up in there. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Really such a pleasure to have you on the show. It really is a pleasure.
Listen, I thank you for having me. It's been a blast, you guys. It's like we've been talking for 20 years. I mean, it's been great. Awesome. I really enjoyed it. We've been here for over an hour, and the best part is I feel like we barely scratched the surface.
Yeah.
So anytime you want to come back on, you let us know. How's that?
I'll bring you on anytime.
I would love to come back on. You guys just let me know. We'll schedule it. We'll lock it in, and we can pick up where we left off and get even deeper in the world of pro wrestling.
Sounds good. Sounds good. We'll get the video thing hashed out.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll get your dad on.
It's funny. Years ago, I make the transition to Apple products, and I'm thinking I'm all high tech and I'm on the next level and everything, and I can't even see on the video.
Can't even see us on the video. That's what that is. You need a pair. Like a Nickelodeon.
We again, we thank you for your time.
Yeah, we do.
And we really appreciate your insight on things.
Sure.
Keep moving forward, brother. So one day I look on TV and you'll be there, and I'll be like, go back to this date, and he was talking to me, and blah blah blah. But if you become a big shot and I bring it back up, don't walk past me like you don't know me.
That's right.
No, listen, I will never be a big timer. I always know where I came from, and hopefully there's one day where I'm calling the action and you say, hey, I remember that guy interviewing him, and I'm talking about Adam Cole, and you remember him sleeping on your couch.
There you go.
Just remember Danny J, because when he had a ring-announcer
and
position.
I will say this, about 6 years ago, I actually had the opportunity to call an Adam Cole match.
Nice.
And now it was pretty great. Like I said, even at that time, I could tell he definitely had a bright future. And that was when he was in Ring of Honor at that point. So, that's definitely someone who I plan to call more matches up in the future. So
we're going all the way back to Pro Wrestling Unplugged.
Yeah.
That is a long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
but once again,
you guys are great. Thank you again, and I'd love to schedule something soon, and we can dig a little deeper.
Absolutely, sounds good. And when we come down there,
we really appreciate it.
And when we come down there, we're partying, buddy.
I'm ready to roll.
Right, you tell your dad I'll rate his product.
Now remember that we're a little older than you, so we're going to be done by 10 o'clock.
No, you'll be done by 10. So.
Hey, listen, but what happens between 6 and 10 doesn't mean that it can't be, just like
there you go. There you go.
My man Blake Chadwick, everybody. Listen to this guy. This is awesome.
Well, again, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Make sure you check out Blake Chadwick. Check out his father's stuff. Like I said, we just made some orders here, and it's something that everybody likes cars, So, by all means, thanks so much for Blake Chadwick, for Charles Gemini Gregory, for LeGrand Jackson. My name is Danny J.
Hold on, Danny.
Yes.
And we don't know what happened to Mark, but we're putting someone out to fight.
I think Mark actually said he was sick, and I sent a message.
Dude, listen. A yeast infection is treatable. But go ahead.
Oh, geez.
See? This is the way we keep the show. We had a great interview, and now we're talking about yeast infection.
Goodbye.
Until next time, we'll see you at the matches. Goodbye, everybody.
The proceeding was produced by DJB Productions. Go to www.thatcoolwrestlingshow.com.